If you made the mistake of downloading TikTok around half a year ago, you would likely be surprised by the lack of silly dances and get ready with me's, and the overwhelming amount of just insanely depressing, nihilistic content.
I don't have anybody to tell my feelings to.
Ever fluctuating as the internet is, though, social media and film and TV have never just stuck to nihilism. In fact, there's been a recent shift towards overwhelmingly positive, optimistic ways of thinking and a push against nihilism.
It's all about hope.
From Hopecore to the Pine Grove Shuffle, internet spaces have seen some surprising development away from pessimism, as have many films.
Life is a gift. We must celebrate it.
I want to explore these varying mindsets in media, what they mean, what they say about us, and where they might go. There's a lot to talk about. Please stick with me because there's so many interesting things here, and I'm very excited about it, and let's get into it. Films showcasing nihilism or other pessimistic attitudes are nothing new. Some films and shows like Fight Club or Rick and Morty simply show us characters that are nihilistic in their attitudes.
Our Great War is a spiritual war. Our Great Depression is our lives.
From fantastical species
Existence is pain to a meeseeks, Jerry!
to villains like the Joker, whose whole life goal is to prove that life is devoid of meaning or goodness.
When the chips are down, these civilized people, they'll eat each other.
Other films are just pretty hopeless themselves, with pessimistic perspectives on human nature or the world as a whole. While films have never shied away from showcasing the range of human emotion, including despair, online there's been a surge of discourse around and attention paid to films like these and just sadness overall. This ennui isn't surprising, I suppose, given the variety of difficult-to-handle events plaguing the world, and not to mention that most trends are pioneered by younger generations, which is an inherently tumultuous point in one's life. But like I said, focusing on tragedy and nihilism, both in media and real life, is nothing groundbreaking.
He believes in nothing, Lebowski, nothing.
After all, concepts like nihilism only exist because of people having these very same perspectives centuries ago. Though, to be clear, I'm using nihilism pretty loosely here. Saying nihilism is easier than saying nihilism and pessimism and hopelessness, but I'm really talking about all three. Anyway, something that is new is the rise of the first phenomenon I want to talk about, corecore. If you're unfamiliar, corecore, and nichetok, which is technically a different thing, but I won't get into it, is a very unique form of primarily TikTok content. It has its origins in 2021, but really peaked in 2022, even continuing a bit into this year. Basically, it's a montage of clips from a huge variety of sources strung together to evoke a feeling or bring attention to a topic. They're often accompanied by an Aphex Twin song or an equally sad backing track, and they can be film-based, in which case they tend to overlap with Literally Me characters I've talked about in another video. But these are more often composed of content from the internet, TikToks or YouTube videos or similar posts that give a depressing image of modern society. Indeed, they're almost exclusively sad. Some praise these as high art, going as far as to say that corecore is the artistic movement of this generation. Others argue that these videos are at best dumb and surface level, and at worst perpetuating, just wallowing in one's own sadness.
Life is a series of closing doors, isn't it?
But more than just pure sadness, a lot of corecore expresses reflections on the world. I've seen corecore about racism, sexism, homophobia, and most frequently about capitalism and consumerism. Overall, this type of corecore tries to capture what it feels like to be alive today, especially on the internet. And these are almost cathartic to watch. In a society with, needless to say, lots of problems, it's really nice to have thousands of other people going, look, this is bad, I see this problem too, and I'm worried too. So these videos are definitely a lot more productive and insightful than the pure sadness, life is terrible corecore. But I have to point out that you still come away from most of them feeling pretty hopeless. Corecore and similar trends are certainly a fitting way to express yourself on today's internet. The editing style often reflects the massive oversaturation of every social media platform, constantly bombarding you with information, and it also allows people to express themselves without being too vulnerable. The internet is, quite frankly, kind of mean, and expressing these emotions through a compilation of other people experiencing them is easier than being genuine. The popularity of this medium too makes sense. There's often an inherent appeal to nihilistic attitudes.
Feels nice, doesn't it? If nothing matters, then all the pain and guilt you feel for making nothing of your life goes away.
And falling into self-pity and romanticizing one's own sadness, or as the memes put it, romanticizing your melancholic solitude, is especially common in media today. Modern TV shows often show mental health struggles as something aesthetic, perhaps even something aspirational. Honestly, there was a point where I wanted more of these videos on my For You page, like some status symbol of being cool and pessimistic and ironic. Later on, during the popularity of corecore, sometimes the only message of the videos was sadness and nihilism.
What is the truth? Nothing matters.
And the rise of this subgenre makes sense. There are, after all, lots of films to provide this content of people just sobbing or saying pessimistic things about the world.
If I disappear, who cares?
But without the broader, often more optimistic content of the entire films, these edits are just needlessly sad. The fact that I'm emphasizing how depressing all this is might come across as critical of the trend, but it is good that people are finding a medium, maybe even an art form, to express themselves. They might even bring attention to important issues. Less positively though, these videos have no hope, no light at the end of the tunnel.
Irony is an entirely negative action. It keeps poking holes but leaves nothing new to fill them back up. It critiques but doesn't rebuild.
They're an outlet for self-expression, but also an echo chamber that offers no solutions. But we're only on the first section of the video. Corecore and nichetok are no longer all there is. They've lost a lot of popularity, and recently we see some different genres of content. So let's talk about the push against nihilism. But first, I want to thank the sponsor of this video, soleilspace.com, the world's first truly global community streaming platform created by and for creators of color all over the world. Community streaming means you can make new film-loving friends through groups and DMs, and even interact with your favorite directors. Plus, their built-in watch party feature allows you to connect with fellow film enthusiasts and watch films together anywhere in the world. Truth is, we all say we want more representation in film, but Soleil Space is literally doing this. And what better way to be part of this change and experience these never-before-seen stories than to, of course, sign up. My friends at soleilspace.com are offering the first 2 months on the platform totally free if you use my promo code MAYAC60. Some of my favorite films from the site are Reminiscences of a Green Revolution, Monkey, and Leche. Add me as a friend to see more of my recommendations, and I'll see you on soleilspace.com. That's it, back to the video. In March of 2022, Everything Everywhere All at Once came out. I watched it twice and cried both times, though the first time was a lot more embarrassing because it was in a movie theater. I think the biggest reason this film hits home for me is because of how it confronts nihilism. If you haven't seen it, it does this by introducing a character who is positive that nothing matters and exploring the root of this belief and then basically prescribing a cure. The film holds a lot of parallels to the internet in particular. Jobu, this nihilistic villain, hides under irony and apathy, as is so very common on the internet.
Wow!
And the vastness of the multiverse in the film feels reminiscent of the vastness of the internet. Both are almost crushingly huge, just like how in Everything Everywhere All at Once's multiverse, everything has been done before, every outcome has already happened.
If you can imagine it, somewhere out there, it exists.
The internet can also make you feel insignificant and like nothing is new. However, Everything Everywhere All at Once also encapsulates an online shift, a recognition that life may not have inherent meaning, but in the style of Camus, embracing its absurdity, its silliness. And ultimately, Everything Everywhere All at Once combats nihilism with empathy.
The only thing I do know is that we have to be kind.
And connection.
I will always want to be here with you.
Those ideas, empathy and connection, remind me of a certain other online trend, but we'll get into that a bit later. One very tangible impact of Everything Everywhere All at Once's success was the celebration of this online through corecore's successor, HopeCore. HopeCore, as the name implies, arose shortly after corecore and focuses on a variety of more, hopeful areas. One of these being celebrating these kinds of successes, whether this be acting accolades,
Mom, I just want an Oscar!
Or musical or sports victories. HopeCore can consist of inspiring videos from real life, social media content, or movie quotes.
Tomorrow is a mystery, but today is a gift.
Just like corecore. In fact, it often uses more positive parts of the very same media used for corecore. Sometimes all this needs is contextualization. The Joker may be the pinnacle of nihilism, but he's from a film that ultimately shows he's wrong.
People will lose hope.
They won't.
BoJack Horseman says some pretty nihilistic stuff, but the show still gives us notes of optimism.
Every day it gets a little easier.
Even the saddest of shows this trend demonstrates aren't without their happy parts, and perhaps this should be true of the internet as well. Even trends as nihilistic as corecore need to be balanced out by, for example, HopeCore.
Treasure the few years you've got, because that's all there is.
Perhaps, in fact, this should be true of our philosophies. As we see with the rise of absurdism and optimistic nihilism, even the idea of nothing matters needs to be balanced out by a more hopeful, nothing matters and that's okay.
Nobody exists on purpose. Nobody belongs anywhere. Everybody's gonna die. Come watch TV.
From the aforementioned hopecore videos to the ever-popular poetry slideshows on TikTok to Wayman's unflinching optimism and Everything Everywhere All at Once, these trends are a start to overcoming our compulsion to hide emotions under layers of irony, and rather just celebrating joy.
I'm happy for the first time in my life, and I'm not going to feel bad about it.
So, I mentioned earlier that Everything Everywhere All at Once's emphasis on connection despite the chaos reminded me of a certain internet trend. If it's yet to hit your social media platform of choice, let me first explain the Pine Grove Shuffle. Started in June by a totally random TikTok user, Garrett Lee, the Pine Grove Shuffle is on the surface as simple as it sounds, an easy, slightly melancholy dance to the tune of Need To by Pine Grove. But as one user points out, this dance is almost like if enjoyers of corecore pivoted to a dance trend. The song itself is pretty dismal lyrically. And the dancers look almost pained. And yet look at the comments of these videos and they're overwhelmingly positive and optimistic. They rely on solidarity and connection in the same way that Everything Everywhere All at Once demonstrates. But so what? What does any of this mean? The first question I ask myself when I think about nihilism online is this all just a cycle? Are we destined to revert back into another sad trend after the Pine Grove Shuffle? After all, corecore may be recent, but before corecore there were sad Bart Simpson edits, or those edgy sad memes, or you get the idea. But I'm inclined to say that no, it's more than that. If it's not clear from the fact that I have this channel, I think that media is profoundly impactful, and this all goes to demonstrate that. Researching corecore, I felt pretty miserable, and then switching to hopecore, I felt suddenly uplifted. It seems that our online awareness of this power is growing. Even during the height of corecore, people were aware of what a negative impact this media was having on them. And so within social media and film and even real life, perhaps this is the beginning of using the same echo chambers and community that made corecore, for example, so powerful, but instead using these to create solidarity and more positive cycles. And maybe that's an overly optimistic view of things, but if there's one thing I want this video to say, it's that maybe it's not so bad to be overly optimistic.
Life's a bitch and then you die, right?
Sometimes. Sometimes life's a bitch and then you keep living.
Yeah.
Thanks for watching. Remember to use my code MayaC60 at soleilspace.com for 2 free months of amazing films. And as always, I'd love to hear your thoughts on all this in the comments, whether this is an entirely new concept to you or whether you yourself have been part of the shifting online climate towards hopefulness. See you next time.